everybody. Um, I just want to preface this with I have a bit of a cold, and so please don't mind my scratchy voice. It is not COVID. I have been tested, so we're good there. Um, and if by any chance I end up coughing in the middle of this, one of the girls will take over for me for a second. So I'm happy to see you all here and be able to go through the event guidelines and the special event registry with you. The first thing I'm going to share my screen here is to roll through the special event registry. It has been enhanced to add elements for the COVID safety plan and the community care that ASU is doing, and the event guidelines. So I'd like to walk you through that. For those of you who are familiar with this, I'm sorry, but I am going to start from the beginning for those who are not. So this is the special event registry. It's eventreg.asu.edu. You'll want to be signed in through your ASU right and password, and you'll see up here if you're signed in. Your site might look a little bit different than mine because I have extra permissions. In order to monitor this, but what you want to do is to start a registry is to hover over this quick start guide and go down to submit a new event registry form. Along here, if you click on the other items, you'll be able to get some information on what the event registry is and what it does. Here on the special event registry, I'm just going to walk through each of the steps and the things that we are asking for and maybe a little bit of a reason why. So on the event description, the event type, we have quite a few event types on here. Pick the one that's closest to what you have. So if you're looking at an in and out, you would go with an open house presentation. You'll notice that there is nothing on here that says virtual. That's because virtual events do not need to be submitted through the special event registry. Hybrid events, however, do because there are people in person. So keep in mind that while you're going through this, that you're really answering these questions, the majority of them for those people that are in person. And that includes if you have 10 people that are on site doing the production portion of the event, that counts as in person. So special event type, we give you a brief description of the event. If you can't fit all of what you want to say in the brief description of the event, there is another option later on to add more comments to provide more clarity as to what your plan is. Promotional website, that has been there before. Event producers, the organization. So you want to sign this, fill that out to the best of your knowledge. Is this event produced by a student organization? If it is, you'll get additional questions which ask for the organization name, your Sun Devil Sync or Org Sync URL, and then the Sun Devil Sync event number. It will also prompt under contact information, the advisor information. Property location, this will give you, if you choose the campuses, it will give you options. I probably should have picked a smaller campus. Okay. On where you're going to be holding the event. If you're holding the event on a lawn, you can choose Old Main per se, and then on the room number and location, then type in the lawn. There isn't a space to say Old Main Lawn, Hayden Lawn, Fletcher Lawn. That's not an option per se, but you can choose the closest building and then say that it is on the lawn to the west lawn, or however you can explain it. Indoor, outdoor events, venue contact name. This is who you booked with or who you checked the reservation with. So this is a common question of if you have to book the room prior to, go ahead and put in who you're talking with, because you can always check if the room is available before you book it. So this is the venue confirmation, not who booked the venue for you. Dates and times. This gives you an option to do your start date and your end date, which will include if it's this multi-day event. If you have the same event, but it's on different days, you can add another item here and it will allow you to add another date. Therefore, if you're doing the same event, you can enter in multiple dates instead of having to clone or start over and do the event registry again for each individual date. Setup time, tear down time. This audience information is new or newer, projected in-person attendance. Please pay mind to that. This is in-person attendance only. You'll select a value on in-person attendance. The audience is attending the in-person event, being faculty, staff, students, alumni, or community members. This is also another key question that will trigger an event review that we will go through in a little bit. If you choose alumni and community members, this is anybody that is coming onto campus that is not currently on campus. And you could view this as these are members that would be coming onto campus that have not done the health check daily. So if you have anybody coming onto campus, you'll want to choose those, and that will trigger the next review. Here's your information on the hybrid information. So if you are doing a hybrid, you would choose yes, and then also select a value of how many people you're having online. Is this open to the general public? Invitation only? Open to the general public doesn't have to mean that you've marketed it on open websites. This could just be that it is open if somebody stops by, that it's not an invite only event. Promoted on public channels, and then of course your age groups. Going to the next tab here is the contact information for the coordinator, the ASU affiliation for the coordinator, what the title is, and then your department or organization. You'll see since I chose student organization that it does ask the information for advisors. And that is very important so that we can verify that this is a student org uh, sanctioned event and that the advisors do know that the event is happening. Special event a requester. Is ASU coordinator the requester? So most of the time this is going to be yes, but there are going to be some times where there's a third party on campus. And if you click no, then you'll be able to enter the contact information for the person that is running the event that is sponsored by ASU. And then will the coordinator be on site during the event? This is another important question, as coordinators are required to stay at the event the entirety of the event with the new guidelines. If you choose no, you are able to put in the other coordinator that may be filling in for you at the event. Safety plan. This is the biggest thing for the guidelines. You have a link to go to the guidelines here if you're questioning any of the guidelines. The RSVP and check-in system is crucial to exposure management should it be needed. So the check-in process, how will the RSVP system, what will you be using? We've offered Eventry, Eventbrite, Sun Devil Sync, and other. How will you check in attendees at your event? This is also extremely crucial. It's required or suggested to use Eventry because we do have the back end of that. Sun Devil Sync is required for all student org events. So what will happen with these is should you need to keep these on file, that should somebody test positive for COVID and they contact you and say that they have, or the health services or exposure management contacts you, you'll need to have the check-in of your attendees readily available to supply to the health services or exposure management. They will handle all email or all contact communication from there. You don't have to do any of that except for make sure that your records are up to date and supply them the information. Room details. This is maximum number of guests allowed in a room utilizing social distancing guidelines. That's very important. So you know that we used to be able to hold 400 people in a room, and now we can only put a third of the people in there. That's what this question is asking, not the 400, but the 130, or not the 30, but now the 5. And then your actual number of attendants expected in the room. So if you're doing one of those production things, you'll want to say that you've got 10 staff members in the room, or 50 people, or 40 people, because you don't want over 50 in the room. This helps us gauge what the room looks like and how you're able to easily socially distance in a particular room. Arrival and departure plans. This is basically to help you think through and detail out how people are going to arrive. If you're going, note in here, if you're going to have people 6-foot distancing as they're entering the space, if there's going to be staff assisting to keep people at their safe distance. Also on entry and exit, that people, if it's an open house, people won't be coming in and out of the same door. If you have different doors that you can send them through, just so that we can maintain our physical distance of 6 foot and not create any jam ups at the doors. There have been some very detailed plans put in here. There have also been some very not detailed plans that have been put in here. So my suggestion to you is to detail out in greatest detail what you can as far as attendee arrival and departure, so that we don't have to follow up with you with additional questions. Health protocols. These are the health protocols from the guidelines. Social distancing, mask wearing, hand surface and sanitizing, and other safety plans. All of this, again, detail out as much as you possibly can of your plan. Mask wearing, yes, isn't necessarily a helpful answer. So if you can state that you'll have masks for those who have forgotten theirs, or that you will be mandating the masks, and really detail out how you're planning to keep this event safe. Those are a lot of the really big changes on the event registry. The safety and security will roll through these. These have been here. These are for the safety teams. So providing high private security, if you need police services, emergency medical services, safety and risk management. This walks you through all of the things that you may not think of as you're planning an event, but are valuable to the safety teams reviewing the event to make sure that everything is safe. Going through cooking, electrical, temporary structures, fireworks. Wouldn't that be fun right about now? Open flames, hazardous materials, pressurized cylinders, the gamut. Live animals, drones, and then anything other that you may consider risky or controversial. This is not for anybody to say that you cannot have your event, and this event registry certainly is not for that. It's to review and then contact you should there be any concerns, so that we can give suggestions and recommendations on how you can have a safe event on campus. Vehicle safety and pedestrian areas. Volunteers. If you have volunteers, you click yes, you'll see later that there will be some notifications as to how you move forward with permissions. I call them permission slips, volunteer forms, or at-risk forms. And then trash or waste. Really think through this trash or waste. It gives you an area to detail out what you're going to do. Normal facility cleanup doesn't always cover event cleanup. So you'll want to think through that plan and contact the venue manager as far as plans there. Going to the next tab, food and alcohol. Will food be served at the event? We'll walk through those plans in a little bit, but it does offer you the approved venues and providers that can um, produce or provide food at your event. Same with alcohol. If you choose alcohol, there are additional questions that pop down that will help guide you through the alcohol process. Guests and guest services. Here's another kicker on a kick out on if the president or the provost is going to be a speaker, if you're inviting any other officials or government officials, dignitaries to the event, high profile people. Think through your parking and transit when you have people coming onto campus. If you're going to be securing parking for your guests, how they're going to be arriving, and promotional vehicles. This is also, the parking doesn't just look at if you say that you need to secure parking for your event. They also need an alert as to if you're going to have hundreds of people, when we can do that again, in one particular area of the campus to see if there is close parking nearby. So really think through where you're doing an event, how many people are coming, and what the parking needs might be. Of course, entertainment and then news media is there as well. Now, supporting documents. Here is the other area, the general comments, where if you ran out of room on that first event description, you can detail out more here. Um, Files are welcome and encouraged if you have diagrams of the event, if you have diagrams of the space, on your safety plans, if you have diagrammed the in and out or the social distancing in the room, anything that you can attach that will help the review process, both for safety review and the safety teams to review for permits, please attach those here. If you mark some of these things as a yes, you'll notice here that you get event notices and warnings, which will detail out some of the things that you will need to do in order to have alcohol or volunteers. The fire permit fee, this here, I know that in the past we've all seen fire permit fees for even small events. Currently, the fire marshal is not doing the fee on the smaller events. So as that's another encouragement to enter any events that you're doing on campus or gatherings outside of normal classroom details. Go ahead and enter them into the registry. You will not be charged a permit fee. And then the signature here, this is you agreeing that all the information that you've provided is accurate and that you do agree to uphold the university policies and the commitment to community care for ASU. So that is the run through on how to set up an event registry. So now with the new guidelines, I'm going to go ahead and share a new screen here. Our meetings and events during COVID. I'm going to quickly run through some of these. I know a lot of you have read the event guidelines. This gives you an idea of the process that is happening now and probably to continue in the future. We allow the meeting guide, the student organizations have additional guidelines to our faculty and staff and meetings hosted by the departments or colleges. They follow the event meeting guidelines, enter through the special event registry. All meetings, both student and faculty and staff, require an RSVP, the roster, and the contact information, as I mentioned, so that if exposure management is needed, you have the information readily available. Events or meetings on campus with attendees from the public, meaning that ASU alumni or non-community members, and events with 50 or more participants will require an additional review by a cross-functional team, and it will then be approved by designated administrators. The student organizations cannot have any non-affiliated ASU guests at this time. That does not include guest speakers. Exceptions. Here we go. The internal meetings attended by only ASU faculty and staff. If it's your regular weekly meeting or monthly meeting, that is not required to go through the registry. Guests invited to speak at academic classes or internal meetings attended only by ASU faculty and staff do not require additional review. Of course, activities associated with a course or academic instruction, series recitals, and Sun Devil athletics and Sun Devil fitness and wellness programs, and then spontaneous expressive activities or other constitutionally protected activity taking place on areas of campus. With these, though, that 50 plus, if you do have 50 plus, you will want to enter it into the special event registry. Event and meeting highlights. So large person events or events and meetings over 50 are discouraged at this time and require express approval. 30 days is requested in order to get the approvals pushed through. Events or meetings are to be registered in the event registry, adhering to the ASU guidelines, face coverings, physical distancing, and then all events or meetings require the RSVP. Attendees preferably through Eventry, or if you are a student, required through Sun Devil Sync. The cross-functional event review is where this starts to get new for us, is that if it is over 50 and there are non-ASU community members at the event or projected at the event, there will be a trigger to, number one, email you, the coordinator, that the event is under review. It will then go to the cross-functional team where they have 2 days to recommend or ask questions about the event in order to recommend it to leadership. And then when it is recommended to leadership, all of the recommendations go up to the leadership. Go ahead. Brittany, do you have something?
I was just gonna let you have a break and take a drink of water if you wanted.
Yeah, okay. I've been going fast. I'm
You're
good.
doing great though, so thank you so much.
So what happens is this goes through the cross-functional event review. They then they will recommend it. All of the yes, I recommend, pending revisions, or I do not recommend go up to the designated leadership, being the provost, the athletic director, the EOS. It depends on the department as to which member of leadership approves it, but ultimately the approval comes through leadership. So we will, the Office of University Events and Protocol, we review these first before they push through to the cross-functional event review. If it is something small, which some of you might have already received, it's just a question. How are you going to get people in and out of the room? It says that this is going to be 100 people, but are they coming in 10 at a time so as to maintain the physical distancing? If it is something like that and it is not deemed that it needs to go through the cross-functional review, you will get a notification that that it has been approved or that it no longer needs review. Next steps, guidance is located on our website. All the FAQ to the COVID-19 website is a good resource to you. We've gone through, this is our MECA training. We have presented to the business office operations managers, and helpful links. You can get information on all of these things at the special event registry and Eventry. Student organizations, they've been doing quite a lot of reach out to the student organizations, webinars, meetings, and information sent out to the student organizations. They have trained quite a few people, but there are many resources available on their website, which is also linked within the event guidelines. One thing to remember here, I know I've touched on it several times, but what we're seeing is that quite a lot of people are wanting to do other types of check-ins, and Sun Devil Sync is required for all student organizations. Communication plan for students, I kind of checked on that. So technology and tools, here we roll back into the special event registry. The other things that the special event registry does is that it collects all of the information for ASU sponsored events. It has a dashboard for tracking the events for the safety teams, a calendar resource for event planning. So this is separate from ASU events calendar. If you go to the calendar on the registry, you'll be able to see what has been submitted so that you can gauge whether or not you want to do something on the same day, or see if something is in the same building or in the same location as you are doing. It's very resourceful. It's a great tool for right now in order to gauge how many people will be in certain areas on campus at once. Again, it is the nexus between the coordinators and the safety departments, and it can be searched in the future for administrators and reporting capabilities. We added we touched on this earlier, that the audience type was added, the hybrid events have been added, and the COVID-19 safety plan have been added. The safety teams that are contacted off of this, here's your list of safety teams, and newly added this year, venue managers and student organization managers and classroom schedulers, which we're very excited about, so that we can cross-check between all of the reservations and make sure that everybody is following through with the correct protocols. This is a comprehensive listing at ASU. It provides the safety departments with vital information in advance in order to help you have a safe and a safe event. It's faster, allows faster response in emergencies. So if it is an event that isn't normally there, the safety teams are able to look at, excuse me one second. The safety teams will know that you're there. So it provides a faster response for emergencies. Due diligence on part of the event producer. These questions I find prompt me to remember things that I needed to think through that I hadn't thought of before. So it really is a valuable tool. And then it facilitates collaboration. Sun Devil Sync summary. Those of you that do use the Sun Devil Sync, it's all ASU students have an account on the Sun Devil Sync platform. They're able to scan their cards, and it's a quick way to roster. I don't know a whole lot about Sun Devil Sync, so I'm gonna pass through this one. And same thing, if you want more information on Sun Devil Sync, reach out. We will connect you to the people that know it better. I know the registry, not the sync. And there we go. We're up for questions.
Okay, thanks, Suzette. You can take a little break while I get these questions prepared. Just a reminder, if you do have questions, go ahead and drop those in the chat. We have a couple questions that came from our RSVP. So I'm going to go through those with you if you don't mind. Let's see here. Can you talk a little bit about off-campus events? So if anyone's planning an off-campus event, are they allowed to? And how does that kind of work with the registry?
It's a good question. It's a wide question. Currently, there are not specific guidelines for off-campus events. The guidelines are that we expect that all on-campus event guidelines are followed for off-campus events. There is, on the special event registry, you'll note when you choose location, there is an option for off-campus events. So I encourage you to go ahead and still register your event, and and then choose off campus. And then that way it can be reviewed by the safety teams. If the thought is, and it has not been approved or pushed out yet, as we all know that guidelines need to be reviewed and really thought through before they're published. That if ASU funds or student org funds are being used to produce the event, that it should go through the registry and be considered by the safety teams as well, just as well as the on-campus events.
Okay, perfect. The next question that we received is, do I have to have the space booked before I register my event? I noticed that you said that the venue managers were, included in this process. So is it better to have the space booked ahead of time before they're registering?
I mean, if you can, sure. But either way, if you can't book it, there is a cross check between the venue managers and the special event registry that you will not be confirmed on your registration if you or reservation if you haven't registered the event. So you can hold it tentatively and get your registration in. You can check on the availability of the room and get your registration in and then reserve it. But the two can be done simultaneously.
Okay. I believe you touched on this briefly, but one of the questions that we received was about staffing. So my understanding is that the staff that will be present count towards your 50 people in person.
Yes, the 50 people is bodies on site. So whether it's staff, volunteer, faculty, guest speaker, or audience, that could also include if you have, granted, we haven't touched on food. I can go into that a little bit more, but if you do have catering staff on site, that also includes them. So just consider it as no more than 50 bodies in the space.
Okay. And you also touched on this a bit, but someone was asking if they're allowed to have in-person events that include members of the outside community. So going back to, thinking through, are these people here and are they doing their health check on the daily basis, or are they not? Is that allowed?
Right now, it's discouraged through the fall. We're still pretty new into this and trying to get events up and off the ground and being able to gather as an ASU community. So we do discourage non-community members. However, that doesn't mean that they are not allowed. I would put in your request very early. Make sure that there's enough time for it to be reviewed by everybody. Have your safety plans completely detailed out and think through how you're going to safely bring them onto campus. There are also resources on the left-hand side, I believe, of the event guidelines on our website that is communication samples. So you'll want to push out the communication to all non-ASU community members of our protocols. Have it on your invite, have it on your reminders, and then also reiterate them on site. Have very clear signage, have staff that is helping. So it's not a no, but it isn't recommended. And I would encourage everybody to think through if those people can be included virtually for now. And then look at it again in spring when we've had a bit more time to work through these guidelines and maintain a safe campus.
Sure. Okay. And that will lead me to just say that, this is all, I think, a learning process for everybody. So if you need help talking through any of your events that you're thinking about hosting, please reach out to us at the University Events and Protocol Office. We are happy to help. We can talk through things with you. We may have have been involved with something that's similar, we can tell you what worked, what we would change. So just keep that in mind. We are here as a resource to you, and feel free to reach out. I'm going to drop over to a question that was placed in the chat by Morgan. Is it required or suggested to do health screening questions and temperature checks for in-person event attendees?
Currently, it's not required. Number one, because we're encouraging them all to be ASU, and they would have taken their health check in the morning. However, if you're comfortable, or your level of comfort for the people that you're bringing onto campus or the group that you are having, if you feel that health screening questions ahead of time would help in order to create a safe environment and for everybody to feel comfortable, then yes, but it is not required.
Okay, that's helpful. Crystal, I see your question about, are there certain approved vendors we need to use that provide individual packaging? I think we need a little bit more clarification on what you're asking there, unless Suzette, you.
I think it's food.
Oh, food. Perfect.
Yeah. And
Okay.
that's good because I didn't really touch on it earlier. I said I was going to, but I didn't. Food is a big question right now because there are certain places, like on the guidelines, it says that it's discouraged. But that if you must have it, that you it has to be prepackaged, grab and go style. And then also, if it is eaten during the event, that you maintain the proper distancing and that those who are eating are allowed to remove their mask just to eat, only to eat, to put it back on. You know, this one's tricky because if you have a 2-hour event, I encourage you to think through, do you really need to feed them, or is that just something that you did in the past? Can you give them something to go that they could take with them and eat later? Can you give them a gift card to get dinner later, something like that, if you really want to feed them? Now, if it's an all day thing and you do need to feed lunch, then think through where you're feeding them. You know, outdoor spaces, now that it's getting cooler, would be great. Make sure you have your distancing. But things do have to be in a grab and go prepackaged utensil, disposable style. So with that, as far as approved vendors, it's the same as it has been, that you can use any ASU approved vendor. Aramark has done cheese boards in a grab and go style. They have charcuterie boards planned. They have a whole menu out there for you, and I would encourage you to use them. They are working on campus. They're doing it safely. Other vendors that are allowed to be used, I would make sure that they are aware of ASU safety protocols and the prepackaged guidelines that have now arose. So just do it safely, and then really think through, do you need to feed them? And again, this is for now. We're working through this. We're trying to figure it out. And the safest bet is to keep people in their masks. But if you need to feed them, then do it in a safe manner and follow the guidelines.
I will say that, it seems as though Aramark and Sodexo are very aware, that these new guidelines are in place, and they're definitely kind of waiting for the events to kind of work through the process before they're committing to anything. So I would just keep that in mind when you are submitting your events or talking to them about what food options. Just keep that in mind. Marlene asks, at ASU Care, prior to COVID hitting, we had booked several weddings for September of 2021 and on. is it safe to say that they will be going through the event approval process even if they're booked that far out? And I think, Suzette, we can use the example of the wedding that was submitted for West in 2021.
Yeah, they will be reviewed now for safety precautions, and just also to be aware that they are booked. Um, but knowing that things might change between now and then, especially September, let's just hope things change in a good direction by September next year. But we, we're all rolling through this as it goes, and as we saw in March, things changed on a dime, and we were all able to adapt. So I'm sure that anybody that booked a wedding is also anticipating that there may be some changes, but let go ahead and submit them, and let's get it going and review them and know about them, so that when things change, we do know how to address those, and we can address them early, especially for a wedding. You don't want the last minute change, but preparing the clients that there could be is a smart bet. And then also doing what we can now to prepare us and them is a good idea.
Okay, and this is our last question that came from the RSVP. I think all of the questions that were in the chat have been addressed. But this one is basically about the event guidelines. Will there be different guidelines, basically as larger groups of people can gather? Will they be more restrictive to ensure that everyone is safe, student safety in larger events? And, if like a career fair was happening, and that was approved for more than the 50 individuals, do you foresee that these event guidelines are going to change? My thought is that it's a fluid document, or the guidelines are fluid as we kind of work through these times, right? I mean, they could change in 3 months and be something new.
Yeah, absolutely. The guidelines are fluid based on uh, what's happening in our communities, as far as the COVID counts, and how we saw that early on. And so should things change as a state or as a community, the guidelines could also change. As things change as ASU as a community, guidelines could change. um, who knows what happens, if there's vaccines or whatever, who knows with any of that, how any of that is going to change. But with that, the event guidelines would, in a response to large gatherings, for sure, if the event guidelines are updated to allow more than 50, there will be an update to the guidelines, or there may not be. It may be that it's exactly as it is, but now you're allowed to have more than 50 people.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of working through this together, but I can assure you that each and every one of these steps has been put in place in order to create a very safe environment, or as safe as environment as we can, as people gather. So as far as higher restrictions to keep people safe, I would say, I don't know if higher restrictions are needed, or if it's more communication and more education to our event community in order to supply the needed materials or information, or think through layouts and the amount of people that come through at once if it were to be a career fair. And then also keeping in mind that virtual is part of our reality now, right? Like there's a really good reach that we, if you haven't experienced it, those of us who have done virtual events, that we were worried, well, the local people aren't going to come, but those counts were made up by people around the country that never would have been able to attend.
Right.
So keeping the virtual element in there as well to, of course that's safe. They're not coming on campus, but it also engages a wider, a wider group of people.
Sure. Okay, well, that's it. So you can go back to resting your voice, and thank you so much for all of this great information, even though you're not feeling well. We hope that you get better soon. And as Terry mentioned, you have a pretty good chance at winning this blanket. So don't forget to fill out the survey. And, reach out if you have any questions as you're going through this process. Thank you so much for joining us today.